Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to our presentation today entitled Rights, Recognition, and Respect, Upholding Multilingual Learners and Immigrant Student Rights in New Jersey Schools. Um, our speakers today are going to be Daryn Plummer and Dr. Michael Coleman. Daryn is a supervisor of equity and inclusion at Franklin Township Public Schools, and Dr. Coleman is principal at Yorkshire Elementary School in Camden, New Jersey. Their consulting group is called Change Capable Consulting, and this is being hosted by the Advocacy Committee of New Jersey TESOL-NJBE. My name is Sonia Bertini, and I am the chair of that advocacy committee. And we have with us today, you can't see her now, but her name is Kathleen Fernandez, and she is the executive director. So thank you all very much for coming. And Daryn and Michael, we can start.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sonia. And I want to say thank you to both of you, Sonia and Kathleen, for making this connection. Um,
Oh, if I may say,
it
I'm sorry, I didn't warn everybody, didn't tell everybody. I promised last time I interrupt. We will be putting the PDF, the PD certificate into the chat 5 minutes before we finish.
Perfect.
Okay, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
Wonderful. No worries at all. So as
Great.
Sonia mentioned, we are here talking about rights, recognition, and respect. And the first thing I want to do is give recognition and respect to all the expertise in the room. You are on the front line serving our young people on a daily basis, right? And we were quite aware around the federal, the state laws that you are all probably all familiar with. But with talking with Sonia and Kathleen, um, the conversation came up around, all right, I as a practitioner, I have this expertise, I have this competency, and I'm looking to impact the educational spaces that our young people are in. Um, but there may be resistance. There may be colleagues I need to build out capacity. My educational space may not always be supportive as I want it to be. So today's focus is going to be around how can you bring your expertise and your competency to impact your educational space. Um, Dr. Coleman, you want to say anything to kick us off as well?
Yes, yes. First and foremost, it's such a pleasure to be here, and I am so looking forward to have this conversation with you all. And before we begin, we just want to let you guys know that this is a safe space, right? So we're going to have really meaningful conversations. We want to hear your views as we share ours. But like Daryn said, you guys are the resident experts in this, and we just want to add on to the body of literature and have these conversations and see what we can do to make it better in each of our districts. So from what I understand, we covers from almost the top of New Jersey to the bottom of New Jersey, right? So we just want to make sure that, of course, some school districts are different, of course. However, we are here as a sounding pad. We are here for advice, and we are here to make sure that you guys and your students, most importantly, get the service they need to be successful in the school district and in their lives.
So, whenever I'm in front of any folks, I want to introduce myself, and Mike will go next. And then we're going to get to know each other in our breakout spaces in a little bit. So these are
Do the breakout
my
space.
troops. This is the fam. We took a trip in November to Universal Orlando, went to the new park. My daughter there that you see on the far right in the top picture. Funny story, we're on this new roller coaster, um, Cross Racer. So just imagine a roller coaster, two roller coasters that start at the same time and cross each other in the air. So my daughter, she's 14, and I'm on this roller coaster, and I'm letting out a few choice words, and she's like, "Dad, what are you doing?" So that was just a fun story about that picture and that trip. But on this slide, there are a number of ways that I identify myself. A human, a son, a brother, grandson, and so on and so forth. But that last phrase is
Mhm.
something that I keep in my head all the time, and it's an advocate for educational justice and equity. And I have that as my 5 word educational why. Whether I'm in spaces with young people, in spaces with adults, in organizations or conferences, that's something that I always hold close to my heart, and the why that I have every day. And I was just talking to Sonia about her trip to NJTESOL in Salt Lake City, and how she was impacted by the group from Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Yes. In the conversation went on, right, in New Jersey or versus Arkansas or Louisiana, right? The spaces that we have to impact and help young people thrive, which you all are here to do. So in a few seconds after Mike introduces himself, we're going to go into breakouts and talk about what is our 5 word educational why. So just to put that out there and get your brain going a little bit.
Good afternoon again. Dr. Michael Coleman, Principal, Kansas City Public Schools. So let me tell you, I just want to share something with you because remember, this is a safe space. Last week was a particularly tough week for me in terms of running the building. Now, you notice the behaviors are ramping up, things are getting crazy. And at the end of the day, this weekend, I just sat and I reflected upon my week last week, and it was not a good reflection. I got to be honest with you because there were some things that I was struggling with in terms of making better decisions. But most importantly, I was struggling with what can I do to make our students successful. So, I'm going to touch that in a few minutes, but I want you to know that I'm a son, brother, father, friend. I'm a really big fan of sports. Eagles fan, of course, boxing. Um, Recently, a new author, education instructional leader, and most importantly, I'm an advocate for students with special needs. And I want to share a quick story with you, but I do want to hear your why in our breakout group. So let me tell you my why real quick as a whole group. Um, I can remember, as if it was yesterday, even though it was in 1985. I walked into my elementary school as a fifth grade student, and I could not find my classroom. So when I asked someone about, like, hey, where can you help me? Where's this particular classroom? They walked me downstairs. And as I walk downstairs, I'm noticing it's a little dark down there, right? So I entered the bottom level and we walked straight ahead. And then I saw this big black thing in front of me. I was amazed. And outside of the big black thing, there was a cage. And I asked the guy, like, what is this? And he said, it's the boiler room. So my classroom was next to the boiler room. And with that, I knew for a fact that number one, I can't go see my friends in the main school. I can't go hang out and have lunch with my friends. And I said to myself, who is going to advocate for me? Who is going to support me? Where are those people that's going to fight for me to get out of that situation, which is special ed, into a mainstream environment? And at the time, I had no advocate. There was no advocacy. So I said to myself, if I ever make it out of this, I want to support those who are struggling, those who don't have the prior resources, those who families don't know how to navigate and get through some tough things when it comes to education. So to answer your question, that's my why, an advocate for students with special needs. Thank you.
Love it. All right, so we're going to take and Kathleen. We could probably do
Yeah, I
we got
reduced it to
four.
6. Okay, you want 4?
Because yes, let's do four. And when we go in our breakout rooms, and I'll put it in the chat, 5 word educational why. So why do you do what you do every day and try and do 5 words or less?
Okay, great.
All right. Any questions? All right.
All right.
Let's
How
head and
long?
let's do 6 minutes.
Okay.
Perfect.
So everybody take a minute to share.
Perfect.
Oh, no. Ah, okay. They should be open.
I didn't see any notice
I
pop
know.
up
I'm
yet.
like, I'm not sure what is going on here. It says they're not
Mm,
start. Oh, there they go. All right, there
there
we
we go.
Okay.
All right.
Wow. Hmm.
Right. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Mhm.
All right. So, at least in our breakout room, we had a wonderful discussion, some share out around those educational whys, right? Coming down to support for marginalized or vulnerable young people, knowing how it can open doors for them, how it can just support them in their future, right? As it comes to not only moving through the educational system, having that how to navigate that, but also in their lives outside of that. Really quick, we can take one or two share out, something that resonated with you that
Mhm.
somebody shared, or even your educational why, if you want to share that.
Mhm. Well, I can share for my group. There was a theme that for my three individuals in my group, they want to support our students because two of them they were actually translating for their students, right?
Mm,
In the beginning of their career and until now, and then with the third person in our group had a low incident a population and quite often those groups feels like they're not a part of. And we're trying to come up with some suggestions of how we can support them and make sure they're part of the community. So it was a really interesting conversation. And I like the theme I had between my three folks.
love it, love it. Before we move on, anybody else? I'm good with wait time. If this was in person, I'd have you guys up moving and talking to each
Yes,
other.
yes, sir.
Um, and I do want to honor, right, the folks that were coming in with threes and had a long day. Um, but I always like to say, we have, so many minutes with each other, and the
Mhm.
more we pour into each other and connect during this time, yeah, the answers we have and the connections we need are right here with us today.
Perfect.
I wouldn't mind sharing.
Go for it,
Okay.
Jessica.
Okay. So my why. So I am an ESL teacher. It is my first year in middle school, but my 14th year teaching.
Mhm.
It's interesting to even hear your story when it came to where your class was. I feel like it's sad because there's a pattern. Obviously it wasn't that long ago that this happened, but an ongoing pattern where we children subconsciously see what's important based on what's on the walls, right? So the way even going into like my new classroom this year, it looked like it was a dumping ground. So,
Mm,
like truly showing what matters, So for me, um, n- to be as positive and professional as possible, I feel like I'm feeling moral outrage.
mm,
So I want to educate myself.
Yes.
I've worked in 3 districts, um, originally in PA, but because of, our end goal was Jersey.
Mhm.
And in all of those districts, I feel like ESL has been the ball to drop. But
mm.
also, and I'm learning, more and more with special ed as well, which are the two I feel like neediest populations. And it's just something where a lot of people don't know a lot about ESL. I don't know everything, but I try to educate myself, and this is where I'm at.
Perfect.
Love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Jessica.
If I may
Yes.
just say, Darren and Michael, I think that it's in because it's already for something. I think it's important to just keep moving this, if we could, keep moving it along. I know you have some slides that you'd like to cover some really important issues, so
Yep, yep, yep.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
thank you.
And going back to all right, so just want to again ground the space and thank you all for sharing that why. But I like to share this land acknowledgement because it kind of grounds our work. Even going back to when I don't know if anybody's heard of the Carlisle School, when um, folks who were coming in and colonizing our country with indigenous people that were there. Um, through the research, I found this phrase, and it was, you know, uh, kill the Indian but keep the man. Um, and I like to share this, but it speaks to some of the educational environments that we could be in, right? The cultures and languages of our young people aren't accepted or are othered in those spaces. So I just want to ground our work there, and then just giving a community acknowledgement too. All of us have either come from work or our families. We got 100 things waiting for us on our to-do list. We have current events, social issues, political climates that we are all navigating. So I just want to thank you all again for being here today as we get into our content on rights, recognition, and respect of our young people. And as Dr. Coleman said earlier, this is a safe space. We're going to ask everybody to, stay engaged, speak your truth. Um, if you do experience some discomfort with a conversation, just kind of sitting with it and asking yourself, where's that coming from? And we may dip our toe in a topic that you want to extend further. So it's accepting non-closure of some of those conversations. So what we will cover today, we'll talk a little bit about our New Jersey laws and federal protections of our multilingual learners and immigrant students, um, compliance and practice, right? That rights-based instructional programs, and it is a right. A lot of folks don't look at it like that. To have the language that you need, the support services that you need in your space, it is a right. And being able to examine our educational spaces so we can support our young people and our families. Um, we'll talk a little bit about immigrant student rights and legal protections, how to have a trauma-informed response, and thinking about how we can shape our spaces. Like I'm in the right room when we think about our young people and those assets, right? Those lived experiences, languages, cultures that come into our space. Those are all assets for us, for other young people, for the adults that get to interact with those students. But to shape your environment to celebrate those assets on a consistent basis is what we are going to be discussing today. In the chat, I put a document called "Seeing the System." It's something that I've been using ever since I come across it. It was from a group that convened in Chicago on called Chicago Beyond, and the convening was about reimagining equity in education, and they framed the system, right, in multiple different elements. So your policies, your practices, your resources, your relationships and connections within that system, your power dynamics, and then, mental models of yourself, your own leadership capacity, and how you practice in that particular educational environment. So we'll be using that to frame some of our conversations as we go into more breakout rooms. And I'll pass it on to Dr. Coleman on our next slide.
Yeah, so for our objectives, right? So we just want to make sure that we want to identify, some key laws protecting multicultural learners. We want to ensure that programs apply with the NJAC 66A 15. That is a very important topic because we noticed that throughout school districts in Jersey, they're not really in compliance. And we want to talk about some applied rights-based practices, affirming linguistics, protections, and design practices celebrating multi-linguists as an access. So those are the things that we want to talk about today. And feel free to jump in and have these conversations with us as well. Next slide. All right, so three things that we really want to concentrate on, right? So we know and understand that regardless of the language background or immigration status, we have equitable access to education. Several federal and state laws guide our responsibilities, right? So let's take a look at the first one. NJAC 6A 15 requires that New Jersey school districts to identify students whose primary language is not English and provide appropriate language assistance programs. Now, we often hear, well, we don't have people to do this. How are we going to do this? This is a tough conversation we have to have because by law, we have to support these students. So such as bilingual education or English as a second language, ESL services, depending on the number of students and their needs. So again, this is tricky because some districts have the capability, have the money, and have the resources to do it, and others don't, right? And then let's take a look at the second one, apply versus do. And it basically established that all children living in the United States have the constitutional rights of a free or public education, regardless of the immigration status. The bottom line is this: we cannot deny enrollment or create barriers that would discourage undocumented students from attending schools. We have to know and understand that. Our principals have to know and understand that. But most importantly, the district has to know and understand that. We can't deny. We cannot deny. And Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, and we talk about discrimination, right? Based on race, color, or national origin and programs that receive federal funding in education. This includes all students who are English learners receive meaningful access to instruction and services so they can participate fully in school programs. There's nothing worse than seeing a student who do not know the language, who is lost in translation, who is trying their best to catch on, but they don't have anyone to support them. They don't have a friend who speaks their language sitting next to them. So in my building, suppose they have a new student from a different country comes over and they're Spanish speaking, all right? Or in any ELL services they need. If there's another student who's bilingual, who's know their language, I will purposely sit them next to them so they can actually learn together, work together, so that person can have an ally or someone that can advocate for him or her, for that matter. And districts have to understand that they are legally required to do certain things for the students. Number one, we have to identify English learners properly. As soon as they come into the building, we have to identify them. Second, we have to provide appropriate language instruction programs, ESL, bilingual. And lastly, we have to ensure access to all academic content, not just placing in a program. We have to make sure we have access to for them, for the students. And for the families, we have to speak in the language that the families are familiar with, right? In terms of the meetings, the calls, any type of communication, even if we are sending some work home or sending something home, it has to be translated in their native language. And with that, we're talking about report cards, we're talking about IEPs, discipline notice, enrollment forms. It doesn't matter. It's up to us to translate. And lastly, we can communicate in the language parents can understand. We have to find translators. We have to find people that are able to support. It may be a heavy lift, but that is our duty. Do we have any questions, concerns with that particular slide? I guess we do not. Moving on, right? So, question. We would like to answer All right. So for this is our compliance scenario, right? As school leaders, as a school delays ESL placement for 3 months due to staffing shortages. Who fault is that?
The
Anyone?
school districts.
Exactly. Our school district.
Mhm.
Exactly. It's up to the school district to make sure there are resources and people in place. So as a teacher, you may want to have these conversations, but you may feel a certain type of way. But trust me when I tell you this. It's a teacher's right to advocate for their student, and it's all about the delivery. Talk to your principal. Excuse me, do you know if the district is planning on getting someone that can help support? Have that conversation. And then if they say, well, we don't have it, then you can ask to speak to someone from central office, or you can ask the principal to relay this conversation to someone from central office so they can possibly support. All right. So this is a straight violation of NJC 6A15 that requires timely identification and placement. We cannot wait 3 months. School must provide those services regardless of staffing challenges, right? So what the law requires, immediate identification, prompt placement, and we can't have any delays. Now, teachers, I know this may be a difficult conversation. Anyone who's online, it may be a difficult conversation. However, we must talk to our building administration, and then if they don't know the answer, we can ask them to contact someone from central office to support us. Because the last thing, and I'm going to tell you one thing, this is a trick. The last thing school districts want is to go to court because they did not provide services that students legally should have. Does anyone have any concerns about the compliance scenario? Okay.
And I'll just add to this one. Actually just worked with our ESL bilingual supervisor to build a process for SLIFE students as well,
Mm,
because they started a conversation with me based off a PD they were doing for their department, and they were finding that our SLIFE students were being identified, but being identified incorrectly, and they
that's
were being placed in spaces um, that they were either capable of doing more because they were, proficient in their home language, or being placed in spaces where they needed more academic support. So we work with the registration department office to build in a question on registration to identify students, and then it it gave an alert to the ESL bilingual to do an interview with the family. So that's another specific piece of students who are coming in as uh, with their family that's immigrating to the country, or a multilingual learner that is had some interrupted formal education.
makes sense. So when it comes to the rights-based instructional programs, there are four major things that we want to address, we want to talk about. Number one, grade level standards. Students have a legal right to access the same language, academic rigor. First, they have the same academic rigor for the curriculum, and also students have a right to language differences cannot be kind of like used at a lower expectation, right? You have to use it with fidelity. It has to be rigorous. So those are the two things that really jumped out to me. And also appropriate language supports to help students with instruction. And two other things that I really want to talk about when it comes to ESL services is instructional scaffolding and differentiated instruction. Yes, we may know that the student may not be on level, but still, we have to find a way to communicate in their language so they can get the actual the lessons. And with that, our supports have to allow students to actively participate in grade level learning. how can they participate if they do not have what's necessary to be successful? So that's why there's pressure going to the administration. There's pressure going to central office. And we're not going to simplify the curriculum at all. Of course, we want to meet the children where they are, but we're just because he or she don't know the language, we cannot simplify the curriculum, but we can find something in their language that they can relate to and that they can study. So this is a heavy lift, both on the academic side and the content lineage side, but English language proficiency is a must. We really, really need to make sure that we provide those services for those particular students. And the next thing I want to talk about is co-teaching models. Now, first and foremost, everyone who ever been in a co-teaching situation know for a fact that co-teaching is a marriage. Sometimes it works and then sometimes it don't work. However, ESL teachers and general education teachers have to work collaboratively. They really have to work collaboratively to deliver instruction. That's number one. Number two, both grade level content instructions and language develop support at the same time. So we can't say, okay, I'm going to teach this whole lesson in English to this particular group. And once I'm finished, I'm going to get to the ELL learner. We can't do that, right? It has to be at the same time. And we have to make sure that the ELL student feels supported and feel a part of the community, which is the classroom. All right. And then lastly, we have to find the co-teaching model that works. In a situation like this, parallel teaching most likely work. Station teaching will probably most likely work. But most importantly, I believe team teaching will definitely work in a situation like this. So those are the things that we really want to push forward. And then the valid assessment for our multilingual learners, we have to have our reliable measures to assess our students, right? So you can't just make up something on a whim. You have to make sure it's reliable. Number one, schools must ensure that language barriers do not unfairly interfere with a student's ability to demonstrate knowledge or skills. And that's a difficult conversation because we got to make sure the language barriers are not a situation where students feel that they cannot get the information. And we have to worry about when it comes to assessments, appropriate accommodations. What does that look like? How does that help the student? Would you give the student additional time? Would you simplify directions? Would the linguistic supports, would you use all the linguistic supports when permitted and when needed, right? And for the teacher, should we do multiple choice? Well, should it be multiple forms of assessment? Should it be a formative assessment? Should it be like project-based observations or performance tasks? These are the things that we need to think about. But remember, we have to make sure we cater to our ELL students. And also, the last part for the valid assessment is what do we evaluate fairly? And let's be honest. Do we evaluate fairly? Are we placed appropriately in any given academic support needed to succeed? Are we being selfish? Are we being lazy and not going full steam ahead to meet these students where they are and make sure we provide academic support for those students? Those are the questions that we have to ask ourselves. And then lastly, appropriate referrals for multilingual learners. Before making a referral, schools must ensure appropriate language instruction or academic supports. We have to consider the culture, the linguistic, the educational background, and we got to talk about data. Like we need multiple sources of data for support. And then, or lastly, when referring students, um, let's talk about the culture. What's their cultural background? What about their language, right? What are some of the things that are appropriate and not appropriate? We need to have those conversations to make sure that we identify the students correctly.
And I'm just putting a quick question in the chat right now
Okay.
to just kind of gauge which of these is the biggest struggle to advocate for in your
Mm,
space or your district, and why? Just to give
yeah.
folks a few seconds to a few minutes to process
And
which
that's a
of
good question.
these,
That's a good question. Yeah.
and you can answer in the chat, um, just to get a sense of, everybody else on the call. What are some of the biggest struggles? Share in the chat for us. So is it grade level standards, rigorous curriculum for
Good
multilingual
stuff.
learners,
Yes.
co-teaching models,
Yes.
valid assessments, right? Because if all of those pieces aren't in place,
Yes.
the referral is going to be a misidentification.
That's right. That's right.
So I see co-teaching. And anybody want to share a little bit about co-teaching? We got two of the same. What's showing up in co-teaching? No differentiation. So as Dr. Coleman was talking, proper referrals and lack of differentiation. As Dr. Coleman was talking, I was envisioning that handout I shared with you in terms of seeing the system.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he also asked an important question or made an important statement earlier. Going to a supervisor or going to a principal, um, an assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction. Those are conversations, depending on your district, that causes a lot of feelings, right? It causes you to kind of reflect, all right, if I go have this conversation, is anything going to change? Or I'm hesitating because I'm feeling frustrated and I brought this conversation up before and nothing's changed and my young people are not getting the services that they need.
Mhm.
Or is it, we have to go straight to policy. Our policy is just on paper and nobody's enacting this. We said we were going to have this PD on differentiation, but it hasn't moved from knowing to doing in the classroom, which is, what we see a lot of times, right? We have a lot of one-off PD, or even if it's a connected PD, the practice doesn't change. And what do I have to do in that space to influence a particular relationship, supervisor, principal, assistant soup, um, who is really at the table to make that decision? And how do we need to have those conversations to really get that moving forward? So I see lack of differentiation, special education, general ed teachers in the school do not believe in or support co-teaching. Wow.
That hurts. That statement hurts.
Yeah, yeah. Because beliefs lead to behaviors, behaviors lead to outcomes. And it's all outcomes that could unfortunately impact young people.
Mhm.
All right, thank you for sharing that. Based on seeing the system, the power dynamics at the school, whoever holds power can make those conversations possible or not. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, for the interest of time, we got about 10 minutes. So this is just a quick case study that really speaks to how either registration or a particular department, ESL bilingual department, responds to immigrant students coming into the district, immigrant students, immigrant families, and just making sure that the compliance and the legally sound response is across the table across the district, right, from registration to your department, and you want to make sure that no, and this has been huge over the past year because with different executive orders that came out, ICE being in districts, the knowledge in uh, response to those folks being on the grounds or asking for particular students, knowing that their social security number can't be shared, and families can't be flagged. Those were real conversations that we were having with folks that have been in educational settings for um, a very long time. And just making sure that as families are coming from different countries, they have different languages, to Dr. Coleman's point, that it is a right that the documents, the registration is in their language. That as we support them, we are able to think about their culture, think about their journey to where they
Connection.
are now, and making sure that our spaces are welcoming, are accepting, are respecting of those different cultures and languages, making sure that there are no documentation barriers, that your staff, right, and sometimes it's coaching up, right, that staff are trained on ply versus dough. And I know a lot of districts are doing trauma informed
Mhm.
professional development. And again, it's always how do we go from knowing to doing in practice, right? And over time, that shapes the culture of your district. And and that's really what we want, right? We want to move from compliance to culture, right? We don't want one-off professional developments and nothing lives in practice. We want to move from the competency, the expertise that you all have in the space, to impacting the relationships and connections with supervisors, principals, central office, so that from start to hopefully finish as young people come into the district, that we are supporting them all the way through graduation from when they started with us at registration. Edwin, I saw a hand.
Yeah, I didn't mean to raise. I thought it would. I just wanted to make a comment. Every time I attend meetings regarding undocumented students or families, I like to make one comment, and that is that um, these kids are not getting anything for free in our schools. Their parents pay for their education through their
Mhm.
taxes. When
Absolutely.
they pay their rent, a portion of that rent goes to pay property taxes, right? And our schools are funded through property taxes for the most part. Another percentage comes from um, state, um, and a very small percentage comes from federal grants and things of that nature. Um, so as we provide services to our students that may or may not be undocumented, because we don't know that for sure, it is fair to understand that the same way that we would provide the services to any other student is the same way that we would provide it to these students that may or may not be undocumented, because they're both paying for our salaries, for our electric bills at our schools, right? Um, so it's not that we are doing anything extra. It's not that we are doing anything charitable, right? It's not charity. It is a service that their parents have paid for. So I always like to make that comment because I feel that it grounds individuals in a very solid understanding of why we need to do this, why we need to provide differentiated services, why we need to hire more translators. So yeah, those are just my 2 cents. When
Thank you for that. No, that's powerful.
Just poking out.
Um, I'm sorry, was somebody else was going to share?
No, I wanted to say that was a very interesting point. And those are the conversations that me as a principal is trying to have with like the central office. I mean, it's so easy to kind of sweep things underneath the rug. But at the end of the day, we have to provide services for our students. And one thing I hate and one thing that got me into trouble before is that a lot of people make decisions behind a computer. You have to come into these buildings. You have to get into the classrooms and you have to see the struggle to know and understand that, listen, we got to do something because this is not supporting our students who are having language barriers. I'm sorry.
No, no, yeah, thank you for that. And as we were wrapping up, I was gonna kick it over to you, Dr. Coleman, for these last two slides.
Okay. Okay. So for the resources, I'm thinking one of the things we didn't talk about is the 1974, the Equal Educational Opportunities Act. So with that, no student is denied equal education opportunity because of the language barriers, what we talked about. And then schools must take appropriate actions to overcome these language barriers. The school community will have to find the district will have to find out what can they do to support these students, right? And districts must provide instruction to students that can meaningfully participate in the school, not just be physically present. We have to find that sweet spot where we can support the best way we can. And then we take a look at the Supreme Case Lau versus Nichols. And that simply is that providing the same instruction in English only classrooms for students it's not equal access, number one. Number two, this violates the civil rights protection under Title VI. So at the bottom line is same treatment is not equal treatment when language prevents access. And I'm going to say that again, like same treatment is not equal treatment when language is involved because it prevents the access. So those are some very key things in terms of the key resources. And I know we got 1 minute left. And for the action step, so for the multilingual learners, try to enrich our schools with bringing diverse linguistics and assets to strengthen the culture. Number one, we have to know the law. Number two, to protect our students' rights. Understand the law and apply it effectively to safeguard students. Remember, we have to advocate, right? Safeguard students, and then also multilingualism should be made visible throughout the school. So we should see a lot of like if a student's a Spanish speaker, we should see Spanish on the wall so we can kind to make sure that they feel welcome. And then for those who do not know Spanish, they can look on the wall. Hey, what is this? And now they're talking to a students who are ELL, and then that can create a bond. And we got to celebrate multiculturalism. We have to celebrate it in our schools, in our communities, and these are the things that we can do to number one, build a new energy in our school buildings and make our ELL students feel safe, supported, and cared for. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you. I know we're at time
Yes.
and Sonia is going to wrap us up, but I wanted to just put one question in the chat for you to reflect on. You can share in the chat or take it with you. What is one action you are thinking of taking next, just based on what we talked here today, something you've been reflecting on, or thinking about seeing that system in a different way, a conversation, advocating for a particular policy? What is one thing you're taking away and going to take action on? And as we wrap up, the slides are going to be shared out, but contact information for Dr. Coleman and myself at the end. If you ever want to reach out, question, conversation, we would love to connect at any time.
And if I may say, thank you so much to both of you. For those of you who wrote certain things in the chat, I have copied them down, and I do believe they are really good questions and good points for further conversation. I just want to remind you that the Advocacy Committee meets the third Thursday of every month. And I think there was a question put in there about the Plyer versus Roe case right now, a person that doesn't have a lot of faith in what can happen. Don't be so worried about it. It'll be very hard for that to go through. These are people agitating things right now. That would have to be a Supreme Court decision. That doesn't happen instantly. So a lot of what's going on now is just creating a lot of chaos to get us constantly worried and thinking that we can't do anything at all. That's not the case. There are things that we can do. So one of those things is to advocate, right? And to be and come to these meetings and to ask these questions. And
Yes.
we'll talk them through together.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Daryn and Michael, so very much for this presentation. And thanks to all of you too. And Kathy, if you just want to, you did put the PD in the chat, you said?
Yes, I put it in the chat. So I can put it in again. I'm going to stop the recording though.
Okay.
Wonderful.